Whiskey 7. Let me get this down. Whiskey 7, Mike Zulu. Go ahead.
Oh, yes, sir. Well, I just thought I'd see here and see if I'm doing all right with it. Over.
Well, gosh, what's the name there?
Dave, Delta Alpha Victor,
Was that David?
Roger, Roger.
And whereabouts are you located, sir?
I am on the Lake of the Ozarks, right? We're in the middle of Missouri.
Roger, on Missouri. Well, we don't usually go that way. Usually we're down the East Coast, but glad to have you aboard. You are running barefoot?
Negative. We're doing roughly about 750, 800 right now.
Okay, gosh, I wonder what... I'm copying you on my local antenna, and you are about 7 over. Come back and tell me about your antenna system for 10 seconds or so.
Okay. Yeah, it's a off-center fed band dipole, 80-40-20, and it is roughly 7 feet in the air at the V-point, and then drops down to about 35 feet in the air. Over.
Roger that. I'm copying you generally about 5 dB over my noise level. To give you some idea, this is a KW, and I'll drop down to 100 watts. This is 100 watts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 100 watts, then back to a KW now. Roger, Roger.
Roger, Roger. And that, you were at 9, absent the amp. When you added the amp back in, you went back to about 15 over.
Ah, roger that, roger that. And what radio were you running, sir?
This is a ICOM 756 Pro 3.
Roger that. And you're doing about 400 watts or so?
No, right now it's showing about, actually it's showing about 800.
Ah, roger that. Well, that last transmission, you were 7 dB over my noise level, so things are looking good there. Gosh, do you normally work on 40, or do you run other bands?
I run 20, 40, and 80 quite a bit. I'm hanging another antenna. Actually, I've got another one out there. I just haven't got everything set up on it the way I want it yet for the 10-meter band. Over.
Roger, Roger. I'm looking at your dynamic range, which unprocessed audio is about 10 dB dynamic range. You look to be about 3 to 4, closer to 3 dB. So you are doing some nice fattening, Roger.
I'm doing some nice what now? Some nice topping?
The fattening, audio fattening.
Okay. Is that an ailment on my end? Over?
Well, if you're not running your compressor, usually we suggest running the compressor at about a 3 out of 10, just to token them out, but it is the beginning of the fattening process of the audio. You know, if you were to consider if you were talking on a PA system, and I had my VU meter tied to the output of that PA system, you would be classified as running about a 10 dB dynamic range. Dynamic range is the difference between the loudest part of your voice and the least part of your voice, the softest part. So in an unprocessed audio, usually we say that's a 10 dB dynamic range, which if you equate that to modulation, it would be about 30% average peak modulation. But as you start to shrink the dynamic range, which happens when you start to fatten the audio, my best signal strength setup is a 3 dB dynamic range, which interprets to 80 to 85% average peak modulation. Roger.
Roger. Okay. Well, I do have an 8-band equalizer thrown in here on the deal. Compression is set at 3, about 3.5 right now. Mic is set at about 40% on mic gain, and we're well, it's actually got another output for mic gain as well. I got the high end set up a little high, mid-range is just about in the middle, and bass is turned down low.
I think it sounds excellent. Now, I would go to my ALC meter and adjust my mic gain, or check your ALC. You want to be a mid-scale to 2/3. It sounds like that's where you are now, but if you go to your ALC meter and check that for mid-scale to 2/3, Roger?
Roger. Okay, I'm looking at, I'm looking at it right now, and there we go. There's a little over mid, about 60% right there that I'm cranking into it now. I can probably go a little bit more here. Compression is completely turned off on the radio since I'm going through this equalizer. I didn't want to do both, but W7MMZ.
Roger, yeah. Well, I think you got it there, sir. It looked good to me. I could hear you when you came up on your level, and if that was mid-scale to 2/3, you're doing great, Roger.
Roger, that's where we're at. Yeah, we're ALC's running about between 60 and 70% right now.
Yes, sir, that's exactly where you want to be. You know, your ALC is actually looking at the output of your limiter. So you have two things for fattening. You have your initial compressor, which is a slow attack and release time compression device, and then the limiter is a much faster attack and release device. But you don't want to push your limiter because it's so fast attack and release that it only wants to work a very limited amount, and unlike the compressor, where you could probably do, if you wanted to, 20 dB of compression on a compressor, because it has relatively slow attack and release times, so the device is not really challenged. Roger?
Roger. Yeah, I think I pulled most of that out. You're getting a little over my head, but I love learning it. I eat this stuff up, so yeah, it's fascinating to me. But yeah, I mean, it looks like it's good on this end, and everything I'm seeing amp-wise and output-wise is about where it's at. And so now I'm not flat-topping, over?
Oh, never were. Just a question, though. Are you running as wide as you can, like 100 to 29 KC, Roger?
Okay, I'm trying to dig that out. Which one is that on here?
It would be a bandpass. Usually they put that in a lot of different places. Unfortunately, they put it in too many places, so you have to check 2 or 3 places to be sure you are, in fact, in the wide mode as possible. But usually it's in the towards the transmit area there, and you want to be 100 to 2900 or 100 to 3K or some, right in that area there.
Okay, I'm going to make a note of that. I mean, yeah, I see the passband tuner. I guess that's what I'm looking at here. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, sir. And you don't want to be in anything but the widest. Now, I say that your radio may turn up 6 KC, and we don't want that. Ideally, your bandpass should be 100 to 2900 or somewhere in there. That's a nice place to be, and it influences your friends and keeps your enemies from coming to your house.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a good feature to have on a radio. Yeah, it's at its widest right now. I know there's a menu that I can get into in this thing and see just how wide that is. I'm going to have to I probably don't want time to frequently doing that right now with you, but it's as wide as it can possibly be right now by the tuner.
Roger. Now, is that seven band outboard EQ that you've got?
Yeah, it's an 8 band outward EQ, over.
All right, what is the top EQ frequency range?
3200 hertz.
All right, and where's that setting now?
That is setting at about 65%.
All right, and usually what I do, I make it a point to, like if I'm running a 3-band EQ, I'll keep the mid-range flat, because what I want to do is use the top and the bottom to make a difference in relationship to 1KC. So if you boost 1KC along with everything else, it makes it so much harder for the top and the bottom to actually make a difference. So I usually keep the 1KC flat, and then my top and bottom EQs make much more a difference. Roger?
Oh, Roger. Okay, well, I can come up on the 3200 scale, and then the bottom scale is 80 hertz. That's probably a little too low. What one would be on the bottom that you think I would adjust?
Not the bottom, but the mid-range. One around 1K or 1.5. No, 1K or 800, somewhere near 1K would be the ideal frequency to put to 0.
Okay, I've got a 900 and a 1500. I'm setting the 900 to 0 right now. Over.
Alrighty, and then tell me a little bit about your antenna system there, or tell me about something about the radio that you like.
Yeah, this particular radio, the reason I got into ham in the first place was because of my sailing adventures, and so in the sailing world, of course, if it comes to radios, it says ICOM on it, and I've learned since then that that's not necessarily the case, but in any event, that's what I've got. So yeah, this is 756 Pro 3. I like it. It seems like a good all-around unit. It seems to have pretty good ears on it. From the specs that I've read, I get good signal reports as a rule with everywhere I go, so I'm kind of pretty happy with it overall.
Roger, and go back to your ALC and double check your level since you made the EQ change in the mid-range. Go back to your ALC and maybe adjust your ALC level again for mid-range to mid-scale to 2/3. Roger?
Yeah, oh yeah, I brought the ALC up, I see that. Okay, we're going to bring that back down just a little bit now. Here we go, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That looks a little bit better to you?
Yes, sir. I think you got it there. I think you got it. If you get a chance, check in next Friday and we'll compare notes and see what, what everybody's saying, Roger.
Roger, what time do you normally come on? I'd love to participate in this.
We go 3:30 till 5 on Friday afternoons. 3:30 till 5, Roger, and that's Eastern Daylight Time. Sorry, didn't catch the last.
Yeah, what is your QPA?
We're located near Louisville, Kentucky. We're just across the Ohio River from Louisville, Kentucky, Roger.
Roger. Okay, so yeah, I've apparently got your call time wrong too. It's Kilo Charlie 9 Golf Kilo Victor. Is that correct?
Negative. Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor. Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor. Roger.
Roger. Okay, I'm showing you Indiana.
That's right. We're just across the Ohio River from Louisville, Kentucky, on the Indiana side of the mighty Ohio River.
Okay, I got you. All right, James. No, I'll definitely be back next week. This stuff is a part of it that fascinates me, and I have some hearing issues myself, and so good audio to me is an important thing. And when I heard you start talking about that, I thought, well, I'm all on board with this. Over.
Roger that, sir. Roger that. Well, we have been recording, and we have be posting it up on YouTube in the next couple of days. So if you want to hear your audio and the progression, go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, and that will take you to our Qso-Vlog page. And on that page, you'll be looking for an air check entitled My Group Air Check 7/19/19. My Group Air Check 7/19/19. Roger.
Okay, My Group Air Check 7/19/19. Air check 7/19/19. Roger.
Roger, somebody's got a Vox on, sir. Whoever's got the Vox on, turn it off. You're interfering. Your Vox is king. That's right. The day, it's today's date. My Group Air Check. Today's date 7/19/19. Roger.
Roger. I got you, sir. Yeah. All right. I will do that. And thank you so much for that. This is an incredible service. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a big help. You get this equipment, you get it all set up right. is sometimes a hassle, and I like tweaking on it, but it's hard to get. You can listen to yourself over the monitor, and you get a good idea of what the mic and so forth sounds like, but you don't get a good idea what the transmitted side of it sounds like. So, and speaking of which, this particular microphone, I have a Heil 77D in here, but I seem to end up with a lot of noise issues with it. I think it's feedback, or not feedback, but I think it's a grounding issue with it I'm going to have to deal with. So this particular mic is the good old-fashioned D104 Silver K Eagle, over.
Roger, with a built-in preamp.
Roger, roger.
Because it'd sound like hell without the preamp, Roger.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never really turned it off. I think I've got it set very, very low. I don't think it needs a whole lot.
No, it's just the D104 cartridge is a tremendously high impedance cartridge, like a mega ohm or something, and you really need a FET. It needs to work into a FET preamp to actually work. Otherwise, it's just into 600 ohms. It sounds like sheet tin, Roger.
Yeah, I know they do. They used to sound like that. Absolutely. I don't know if this equalizer changes any of that or not. But do I sound tinny here?
No. See, that preamp makes it work, because the preamp in the microphone has a FET input. So that cartridge is preamp is designed for that cartridge. Just makes it sound just beautiful. And the output of the preamp is low impedance, so it works 600 ohms. So it works right into your radio just great.
Yeah, I was. I had a couple of these sitting around, and I thought, well, I'd mess with it a little bit, and then when I hooked up the Heil 77, I just never could get satisfied with the sound I was hearing with it. So I went back to this thing, and I've kind of been hanging on it.
Roger. Now, if you might be up for an experiment, I'm looking at your audio on the spectrum analyzer, and it could use just a tad bottom end. Do you have an EQ right at like 100 cycles or 150 cycles?
I have one at 160.
Okay, bring that up 2 clicks from where it is.
Okay, there you go. There's 2 clicks.
Talk to me for about 10 seconds.
Okay, I'll talk to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Over.
Okay, and that is the lowest one you have?
Negative. I have one at 80 hertz as well.
Bring that up at 2 clicks.
Okay, there you go. 2 clicks on 80 hertz. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Over.
All right, I'd go back to that 160 and 2 more clicks.
Okay, 160, and there's 2 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. W7MMZ, over.
Roger. That D104's I got a bunch in the bottom end. That helps a little bit. I wouldn't push it more than that. It's a little bit fuller on the bottom than what it was. Roger.
Roger. Okay. Well, I appreciate it. I'll have to take a. In fact, I'm gonna. Oh yeah, there it is. I've got it on monitor now. I'm listening to it. Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. That's definitely different. Over.
Roger. Well, you can see it on the spectrum analyzer when you check out the video. So 3's for now, and thanks for checking in, Roger.
Roger, James. Thank you so much. You've been very helpful, sir. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your service. I will check it out on the YouTube site and like that as well, and I will be back next Friday. So, Kilo Charlie 9, Victor, Kilo Victor, this is Whiskey 7, Mike Zulu 73, sir.